Hello, and welcome to My Streaming Bubble, the podcast where I talk about the streamable media I love with people I tolerate. I am your TV watching and talking host, Jen, and today is a mini bubble day. Somewhat planned, although somewhat not. Like, I knew I was going to record this, I just wasn't sure when I was going to record it and when I was going to release it. So, as usual, episode schedule is a surprise for everyone. But today's mini bubble is going to be covering the part 2 and the series finale of Stranger Things, part 2 of season 5. So I did do a bonus episode covering part 1 when that first came out. I was going to do a part 2 and then a finale, but since they were released fairly close together, I figured, fuck it, I'll just wait and cover part 2 and the finale together. Plus, I was rewatching part 2 with my husband who hadn't watched it yet to get him all caught up. Actually, we watched all of season 5 because he hadn't seen it. So we were getting all caught up just in time for the finale. So I got sucked into rewatching and was like, well, that's not going to hurt to do a rewatch of the season and then cover everything. So consider this your spoiler warning for, we'll just say, the whole series, because just to be on the safe side. But yeah, Stranger Things ended on New Year's Eve, 2025. So I guess we get to at least go into 2026 without having to fucking wonder, when is the next season going to come out? Are they going to be 40 now? Is there going to be a time jump that's going to fit with their actual age? We don't have to worry about any of that fucking shit anymore. So that's kind of nice. That's one thing we don't have to carry with us into this new year. Also, Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a fun, safe, pleasant New Year and holiday season. And if you didn't, like I said in my last episode, that's more than fine. And you obviously don't need my permission for any of that. But I was off of work for almost 2 weeks and accomplished absolutely fucking nothing. I watched Stranger Things, obviously. There was laundry here and there, but not a lot since the kids were home and they live in their pajamas and or bathrobes. I mean, they just are following the example set forth by the adults in their life. Okay, enough about that. Let's get into Stranger Things, season 5, part 2, and the finale. So again, spoiler warnings. I don't really have any content warnings at this time, but make sure you just check the episode description, because if anything comes up while I'm rambling, it will be there. So my general thoughts are that I don't hate it. I don't hate the finale. And I actually liked part 2 a little bit more than part 1. And I'll get all into that. Don't worry. But when it comes to the series finale, the last episode ever, it wasn't bad. I liked it. I didn't love it. And a lot of it works for me. I've definitely have sat through worse finales. Looking at you, Walking Dead, Umbrella Academy, and Killing Eve, and Seinfeld, actually, to just name a few. Those are always the ones just right off the top of my head that had series finales that fucking pissed me off. And I did do an episode on that, I believe. Yeah, I covered a couple of shows that I had watched, and I know I covered the last season and the finale of The Walking Dead because that shit made me so fucking mad. Anywho, but yeah, like I said, I didn't love this final season. I didn't love this finale, but overall, it works for me. It's kind of mid, almost safe, I would say. There are plot holes, sure. There's flaws, yes. No major deaths, no deaths of any major characters or any newly introduced characters for the season that we have grown attached to. You know, we've had Barb, Benny, Bob, Alexi in the past. This season, we get Kali back, and she is the person of color of sacrifice for this season. But I feel like there wasn't as much of an emotional tie to her as there were with the other characters that we've lost. And overall, there are some characters and some scenes that could have been handled differently. And by differently, I mean better. But yeah, for the most part, it works for me and it's fairly satisfying. So even without a major death. And I know, I guess like the Duffer Brothers has said, like, this isn't Game of Thrones. We're not trying to like traumatize anybody. Well, you kind of already fucking did that with season 4 and Max, because I just was a blubbery, ugly cry mess during all of that. And then I was mad that she didn't stay dead. Oh yeah, and Eddie. Duh, can't forget Eddie. Holy shit. First off, I'll just touch base on 2 things that I absolutely fucking hate and that are unforgivable, at least per my standards. And one is going to be the closed captioning. The closed captions for this season fucking suck. They are the worst captions they've ever had. I've been rewatching the series and their captions have always been pretty good at being descriptive, eerie sounds, squelching, synth music, etc. Season 4, I believe, was top tier when it comes to closed captioning, not just for the show itself, for Stranger Things, but in general, for any closed captioning that I've ever seen. That was season 4 is untouchable there. This season, it was like the bare fucking minimum. So I don't know what closed captioning company they used. As someone who used to work for the state, I know that businesses will put in, or, you know, companies will put in their bids for certain projects and whatnot. And that the government will always go with whatever's cheapest. And you always get what you pay for. So I feel like that's what happened here is Netflix went with the lowest bid for doing the closed captioning work, and we got just the minimum. There were a lot of times where there could have been, you know, squelching or intense music or eerie sound, fucking anything. But there were a lot of times where there was stuff audibly happening that was not represented on screen. So go fuck yourself, Netflix. That's fucking lazy. Some lazy bullshit. I know people have also pointed out the Under Armour logo on Holly's sleeve, and people are trying to throw in theories as to why it's there and then why it wasn't, that it wasn't an editing mistake. And I appreciate your guys' imagination and trying to make that work. But let's be honest, this season was a bit sloppy, kind of like the last season of Game of Thrones, where we get a fucking water bottle and a coffee cup. Like, what the fuck was that shit? Like, let's put in some time and effort and care into this. Like, it's the final seasons. Try harder. All right. So there's that. And then also, and I mentioned this in the bonus episode for part 1, when Robin asks Joyce if the lights have ever played a part in like the Upside Down, Vecna and all of that. And Joyce says no. Unfucking forgivable. It wasn't even like a no, like she was trying to lie. It was just like a no, like she forgot where the fuck she's been for the last 9 goddamn years. So that will forever fucking piss me off. And as I'm rewatching the series, the flickering lights are a huge part of it. Gigantic. She had the whole fucking alphabet on her goddamn wall with Christmas lights in season 1. And now she's trying to convince us, fucking gaslight us into thinking lights don't, like, this is brand new information. Ugh. That shit pissed me the fuck off. And it will forever piss me the fuck off because you know why? Friends don't lie. All right, so I'm going to kind of touch base on some of, I guess, the more polarizing characters, scenes, and moments. There's going to be a lot of stuff I'm not covering today because I want to save it and do a full episode with a tolerable or 2 or 3 and really kind of dig into this final season. So like I said, I'm just going to touch on a couple of things and try and keep this as short and as sweet as possible. So is that my New Year's resolution? No, not at all. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. All right, so I'm going to start with Kali. So I love that they brought her back. I love that she wasn't working like for the military or being a spy for the military or for Vecna, but I didn't like how sussy they made her. Hop doesn't trust her, which is one thing, right? Because of like season 2 and Little Sister episode and Elle coming back looking bitchin' and all of that. I get why he might be a little reserved on Kali and have some trust issues. But they really made her seem extremely suspicious when all she was trying to do was prove a very valid point that her and Elle have to die. Otherwise, it's never going to end. There's always going to be another Papa. There's always going to be another Dr. K. Always, always, always. There could be another, maybe the Russians will try again. Who fucking knows? But she had a very valid point. And I feel like there could have been more of a emotional connection with her and Elle. Like, I feel like Elle was feeling the connection. She was happy to see her sister again. She was worried. I like that she did admit that she never went looking for her because she was afraid to kind of help explain why we never saw Kali again. And that's fine. It's a passing line in that whatever, it works. But I feel like their reunion could have been more emotional. There could have been more relief, I guess, on Kali's end of having been saved, being able to tell the truth. And in that moment of, telling Elle the truth about what Dr. K was trying to do with 8's blood and why they need 11's blood and trying to create, as Elle said, more numbers. Like they could have built a more emotional connection there between the two and a better explanation as to what Kali's goal was. And to really, I just feel like Kali overall was underutilized and she lacked any depth or emotions, and that she was just the sacrificial person of color, and how her death propels the main character forward. So I'm very disappointed in how they handled Kali. I felt like that could have been done much, much, much better. Even when Kali goes from like, we both need to die, there is no such thing as a happy ending, that's never going to happen, you'll never get that with your policeman. And then for her to switch, we find out at the end that Kali's mind kind of changed when she saw a moment with Hopper and Elle. But I feel like that all could have been done much better. Could have been a wee bit more obvious. I mean, it was still easy. It was still obvious enough for us to make that assumption when Kali kind of had that look on her face when Hop was pleading with 11. But again, I think because they didn't flesh out Kali enough for this season, I feel like it could have easily been missed. And there could have been more of an emotional reunion between the two girls. It's like, I love that they brought her back, but I hate that they just kind of did the bare minimum with her. It was almost like the Duffer Brothers were feeling called out about having that episode Little Sister in season 2 and then never addressing Kali or any of that ever again. So it was almost like, oh, we better just bring her back, throw her in, and make it seem like this was the plan all along. Especially when Kali's like, I was always meant to die here. Were ya? Was your story always meant to end here? Here? Right here in that moment? I don't know. I think the Duffer Brothers just kind of took an easy out with bringing Kali back and how they did it and how they included her. So, missed opportunity. I felt like more could have been done there. Could she have lived? Possibly. But then I feel like, again, to her point, the government will never stop while they know those two exist. And it was just a waste of a character, of a moment. They could have created more emotion and more reason for us to like give a shit. And again, I know I'm like one of 8 people that actually liked the character and liked that episode. So that's that. Let's see. Oh, the Max and Holly scene. And I think we all know which one I'm talking about. The one that had us all standing up and screaming at our TV, fucking run, bitches, run. Like, what the fuck? I know the show has had these moments where it seems like there is, like, they stop the momentum of the action, of the emotions, of whatever's going on and slow it down. And, like, for the most part, whatever is what it is. But in this specific moment, especially after Max had told her story about how she almost found her way out and then it disappeared and because she didn't fucking run. Like, what has the goddamn song been saying for like the last, I don't know how long since season 4, but run up that fucking hill. Jesus Christ. So frustrating, so annoying, and kind of takes away from that moment of like Max's speech to Holly about it doesn't have to be a song to bring you back. It just has to be something that you have a strong emotional connection to. Love, what have you. Now, I feel like Max still could have given a majority of that speech like any other fucking time. I think a perfect time for that part of that speech would have been when she was first talking to Holly about how she got there, going through the memories and all of that, and how, for Max, it was Kate Bush that was pulling her, and that, maybe Holly just needs something Kate Bush like, prior to Max figuring out that it doesn't have to be music, it just has to be something you have a strong emotional connection to. And then in the moment where they see themselves, and another thing Max could have done was she didn't need to wait until the very last fucking second to tell Holly, you can't come with me. This leads to my body. You have to go out in this creepy ass atmosphere and find your body. Like, that could have been shared also in the caves, right? Like, Max already seemed to know that. So instead of spending the rest of that time being like, yeah, follow me and we're going to get home. Our way home is this way. Honey, yes, technically both your ways home is that way through the memories and everything. But like, you weren't honest with her about her needing to find her own body. And I feel like that's something that Max already knew and not a realization that came in the moment when she's seeing her body and being carried by Lucas. So I feel like a majority of that conversation could have happened in the caves with a quick top off at that moment when they're about to go finally fucking run, maybe, of that, possibly that realization that it didn't have to be a song, that it just had to be someone you had a strong emotional connection to. So Max could have been like, I was wrong. It doesn't have to be a song. In that moment where Max sees Lucas and puts that all together, she could have told Holly, but it doesn't have to be a song. It just has to be whoever you have a strong emotional connection to. And for a hot second, I thought it was going to be Karen. I thought it was going to be her mom, especially with how badass Karen was in taking down the Demogorgon and even coming back and doing the laundry and all of that. So and especially since Holly has spent the whole series like right at Karen's hip, right? Like she's been so little that's where she's been. So I thought for sure Holly's constant, that's a Lost reference, was gonna be Karen and not the little figurine that she just got from Mike. Now, don't get me wrong, that whole moment with Mike and Holly and him giving Holly the heroic was super sweet. I can understand Holly being very much attached to it, especially considering like how absent her older siblings have been for the last 12 years and how that is important to her. I just don't think they spent enough time really portraying that. So when she said it was her little figurine that she got versus her mom, okay, I guess, even though, it was Karen that went down, trying to take out a Demogorgon in order to save Holly. Like, Ted was there and he tried in his best Ted way, but it was all Mrs. Wheeler in that moment. So in that final moment, when they're about to run off, that whole speech could have happened earlier with then just that quick, like, I was wrong, Holly. It doesn't have to be a song. It just has to be someone that you are emotionally connected to, something that you love, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe even then, Holly could have expressed how important the figurine had become and how it became more important to her than her own mother. Because sure, why the fuck not? And also in rewatching the series, introducing Holly into the storyline makes a bit of sense because she did see the Demogorgon trying to break through in season 1. And in season 3, she sees the trees moving from the Mind Flayer. So she's always been a bit tuned in to what's been going on. So that in rewatching the series again, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, that's fine. I've seen people ask, how did Max graduate after being in a coma for, however long? And it's like, I don't know, nor do I fucking care. How did half of Peter Parker's high school and Peter Parker graduate after being dusted for 5 fucking years? Again, don't know, don't care. I think it's pretty easy for us to assume that like special conditions were made for Max, having been, she's got like the best medical doctor's note ever. She's been in a fucking coma. So, and this is the 80s. So she probably was allowed special conditions, medical excuse, do whatever extra credit that she would need to do to get caught up, to graduate. Again, don't know, don't care. It's fucking fine. They were just on another fucking planet and people are worried about how she graduated. Okay. All right. Up next is I'm going to touch base on Will's coming out scene. So first, what I got to say about that is, honey, the only one that didn't know were you and Mike. And as the internet has lovingly pointed out, there is a reason why Erica wasn't there. And I just think that is a fucking hoot and there's some truth to it. So I understand the importance of Will coming out in order to defeat Vecna, to face his greatest fears and everything. And like, that's fine. Zero problems with that. I did think that maybe with releasing his fear and coming out that he would have been a bit more badass, but he was just kind of doing what he did. And kind of what all the seasons were leading up to him being able to do, from spying on the hive mind and then Mind Flayer and hive mind using that to spy on him and his friends, to him eventually being possessed, but then being the possessor, if that makes sense. So all of that kind of makes sense. And the buildup and how important it was for him, sure, also makes sense. But I think I would have liked to see a little bit more badassery come from Will. He does try to communicate with Henry about like, oh, you don't have to do this. You can join our side. And he's trying to talk him through it, which is, fine and everything. But I think it would have been a lot cooler for him to be like, I'm not afraid. Go fuck yourself. How dare you put me through all this bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But I guess Will's always kind of been like the nicer one. I don't know. The way he kind of stammers his way through coming out. Now, again, with this being the 80s, I imagine that coming out to everyone like that would cause you to stammer, ramble, and make references to a story that relates only to you and Robin. Inside jokes. And I'm fine with that. I also loved that his self-awareness regarding Mike being his Tammy, and how it was never about Mike/Tammy. I love that. Again, just that self-awareness, that making peace and coming to things, it all works. What I didn't like and what I found to be the hardest to accept was him coming out to everyone like that. Again, because it's the 80s and, with the stigma of being gay and the bigotry and the rampant homophobia, like that was a chance. that he took. And granted, after everything they've all been through for the last 13 years, it kind of, I guess I can kind of see that they're all family at this point. They all love and care about each other. They're all there for each other, no matter what. So I can kind of see it that way, I guess, because they're all kind of safe, right? A safe space for him. But I don't know. I think it would have been maybe more realistic, or maybe just something I would have personally preferred if maybe he came out like to his mom first. Him and his mom have always had that close connection. That's her baby boy and all of that. And I think for him to come to that realization and to come out to his mom first, I think could have had more of an emotional impact. And then the rest of the gang finding out through like a passing line or overhearing the conversation or something. And then Will and Mike having their little BFF for life talk and all of that. I just think that would have been more effective. And it still could have taken the same amount of runtime as it took in the show. Because I know some people were like, oh my God, you're taking like 20 minutes to do this. Like, the amount of time it took for him to come out doesn't bother me. But again, and I know like Mike had come in and said like, oh, Hop or whatever, they're on their way. It'll be like 15 minutes. And so they had time to kill. I get that. That's fine. But I just feel like it could have been done better. And as a straight, I really have no right to have any kind of fucking opinion on this and what could have or would have or should have been done to address being a gay kid in the 80s. But in my mind, it makes more sense for him to come out to his mom first, have her accept that and love him because obviously. And in that moment, then maybe Mike or Dustin or Luke, if someone comes in and overhears it and they're like, what, you're gay? Like, oh, that's cool, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Mike was your crush? Oh, okay, whatever. Really kind of anything. So again, him coming out to everyone like that was harder to accept than him just coming out. Oh, and also, I don't know how out Robin is. Steve knows, obviously. Will figures it out, obviously. But Robin seemed a little freaked out about Will finding out. Not that she was like afraid or anything, but just, I guess, how he found out kind of made her nervous, and also perhaps the way he might react. But it's like they still all accepted Robin. And maybe she wasn't out, but she was like out enough that she's dating Vicky and being somewhat secretive about that, but not overly secretive. I don't know. But since the group still loves and respects and cares for Robin, like, why wouldn't they have done the same for Will? I don't know. But again, I get it for the importance of the storyline, facing his fear. I wish it would have been, things could have just gone a little differently overall with the scene and then how that was going to help him defeat Vecna. Speaking of Vecna/Henry, first with the whole cave that he doesn't follow Max and Holly into, I think it's pretty obvious that it was a traumatic memory. So when the show took this big chunk of time to be very dramatic as to Max's theory as to why he doesn't go in there, felt like a waste of time. Felt very hand-holding of the audience. Like the show was walking us through that. And I get some younger kids watch it, but again, I felt like that was just insulting because it's pretty fucking obvious, right? We already know Max is in Henry's memories running through, and we see that he won't go into the cave. I think that's pretty easy for us to draw that conclusion that it was a traumatic memory. And again, that could have been done just in like a passing moment, like when they first run to the cave and when Holly's like, why won't, oh, he won't come in here, but why? Max could have just been like, I don't know. It must be like a bad memory that he doesn't want to face or something. But she had to be all super dramatic about it. Why? And he eventually does go into the cave to try and get Max and Holly and, as they're trying to rescue the kids or whatever. So we get to see the full memory as to what happened. And it wasn't just that he got shot by some paranoid scientist with a shiny briefcase, but that, the Mind Flayer stone was in there and how that all happened and how it infected him and took him over and was like, you don't have to do this. You didn't have a choice, blah, blah, blah. And Vecna/Henry was very much like, no, I made my choice. This is what I wanted. And he accepted his choice. And I love that. I'm so glad they didn't give him a fucking redemption arc because that would have pissed me the fuck off. If during Will's little like, you should join us and help us defeat the big Mind Flayer, blah, blah, blah. You didn't have a choice. You were being controlled. You're a victim, just like me, blah, blah, blah. And I love that we get to see all of that emotion in Jamie Campbell Brewer's facial expressions in that scene. I loved that. That was like some phenomenal face acting. And he really captured the moment of Henry's realization, facing his fear, but then also accepting his choice, his very conscious choice that he made. So I love that they kept him a baddie. They didn't give him some fucking bullshit redemption arc because, again, that would have just fucking pissed me off. All of this only for him to turn around and be like, I'm on your side now, guys. No, go fuck yourself. I also like there was an actual like thing that happened to Henry versus some like dormant power within him that unlocked after being traumatized or whatever, after hitting a certain age, It would have been a little too Matilda-y for me, I think. So I like that even though it's still some weird space rock that gave us a few more questions than it did answers, I love that it was an actual like thing that happened. And yeah, and I guess there's going to be like a spin-off of the show about like the Mind Flayer and the Mind Flayer stones or runes or whatever to help fill in those. I don't fucking know. Whatever. We'll see. That's probably going to be another 46 years, so it's fine. And then, of course, Joyce asking Vecna a bunch of questions. So it was kind of funny because as they're entering this alternate dimension, this other planet world or whatever, my husband's like, what the fuck is Joyce doing there? What the fuck is she doing with her axe? And then we get to the final scene and he's like, oh, okay. And I think that actually frightened him a little bit. I think Joyce scared him in that moment. Just the way that she fucking went at it. And I love that we get a quick little F-bomb and she's like, you fucked with the wrong family. So I do feel like in this moment, this is a bit of a redemption for the Joyce character because I feel like in the first half of the season, she's too much of a worrywart. Again, it feels like a bit of a caricature of who she once was. And rewatching the series and being like halfway through season 3, she was very, very bossy, very demanding and concerned for her kid, but unafraid because she's like in full on fucking mom mode. So just like Karen facing down the Demogorgon 2 bottles in. So yeah, her with the axe and Vecna was actually quite satisfying. And everyone being able to stand around and watch all of that happen had to be very healing. So, I mean, I liked that part. That was cool. All right, 11. And like she said in season 1, when she found Barb dead in the Upside Down, gone. Or is she? All right, so first and foremost, before seeing any of the theories online, proving or disproving what actually happened to her, I 100% believe she is still alive. I 100% believe Mike's story. I loved Mike's story too. I love the little like, not necessarily time jump, but like when movies do that, like, oh, and then they went off to do this and that. And I love that. But yeah, I 100% believe Mike's story about, the mage. Why? Because it echoes the ending of season 1, except this time was more intentional on Eleven's part. I like that her and Kali worked together to fake her death. It does make sense to me, but again, without Kali showing more emotions or a bit more clear on her change of heart on happy endings, I think overall that would have been easier to digest. But again, I just don't think Kali was incorporated well enough into the storyline for the finale. So it feels maybe a little like, really? That's what you guys talked about? Because again, if they had shown more of a closeness with those two, I think it would have been a bit more accepting for some fans. I mean, again, I just feel like the Duffer Brothers were feeling a bit called out on the point of Kali and just kind of threw her in like, see, we didn't forget. This was the plan all along. Her story was always meant to end here. Sure. Let's see. And I also thought her injury was more severe and that there was no way she could have lived long enough to keep up the glamour, the facade of Phantom Elle or whatever. But what the fuck do I know? I've only been watching TV for 44 years. One theory that I did see that was like, quote, proving, like in that final scene with Elle staying on the upside down, the theory was that she was very much a projection of Kali in that moment because Elle was able to create that shield when the hole in the wall ripped open and everything started everything just got fucking windy. And she used the shield, she used her powers to create a shield to protect her, Kali, and Hopper. So in this final scene, the theory that I saw was that she did not create a shield for herself in this moment. You know, with everything whipping around on the upside down, she's not getting hit with anything. Stuff's not bouncing off of an invisible shield, and her nose is not bleeding. And then also once everything gets super duper windy and dust bowly, we don't actually see her get like swept away or knocked out by anything. Some upside down gust of wind comes and when it clears out, she's gone. So very much like how Kali's projections can just fade after a time. So I liked that one. I thought that was a good point that it made. Also, yeah, no nosebleed. If Elle was making a force field for herself. So it all works for me. And I like it. And then when she visits Mike to say her final goodbyes to him, and she's like, you know, you have to tell everyone. And he's like, I don't even know what's happening. I think because Elle knows he is the storyteller, he's the one that writes the campaigns or whatever, that he would eventually figure it out. And that he would probably be the only one obsessed enough to eventually figure it out, you know, because he loves Elle. So I get it. And it works for me. Because again, I feel like it's more of a callback to season 1. And I think 11 is off somewhere living next to only 2 waterfalls. Did anyone see a 3rd waterfall? I only saw 2. So it's a compromise. It's a halfway happy. Maybe that's what it was. Not 1 waterfall, not 3 waterfalls, but you know what? 2. 2's good. All right. So the 18 months later, everything's fine. Why? Because why wouldn't it be? Hawkins, I believe, is Latin for denial. And we see in this 18-month later, things are getting rebuilt and fixed. There's a plaque that said something like in memory of those lost to the earthquake or whatever. That right there tells us everything we need to know. Government cover up. Just like in seasons 1, 2, and 3 with being the Russians, the government can be and do many things, but they really love their cover-ups. So it is not hard to believe that they are just washing everything over. Oh, it was an earthquake. Oh, it was aircraft, weather balloons, all whatever fucking bullshit they want to come up with. And Americans, especially probably the people of Hawkins, have been through enough where they're like, you know what, that's fine. I don't care. We don't want any more drama and bullshit. We don't need the Earth splitting open in two. We don't need the government invading our town and doing quarantines and all of that. Like, I think the town is ready to move the fuck on. I did think it was hilarious that like Hopper is back to being just the good old chief of police after killing just a shitload of military personnel. I fucking love it. I think it's the funniest thing. And again, that works for me because you can't be in trouble for killing people that quote like didn't exist in a place that they weren't supposed to be because it didn't exist. Easy peasy. Plus everything that Hopper has been through and has seen, from finding Will's fake body in season 1 to becoming a Russian prisoner in season 3, like, he knows a lot. And it's like, yes, would it be easy for them to just kill him and say it was an accident, you know, feed whatever bullshit lies like they did with Barb's death to just water it down and make it more palatable? Sure. But I think Hop has proved that he's got his found family that, and especially Joyce, would not let that slide. Especially Joyce. She's the one that figured out, you know, with the Christmas lights in season 1. Let's see, what else did she? It's the magnets in season 3. Like, Joyce would not have let that go. So, of course, they're going to let him live, and leave. Maybe, I don't fucking, yeah, because they're going to Montauk, which, nice, very nice. I understood that reference. So everything this man has been through for these last fucking 23 years is enough to buy him and Joyce's freedom. Now, do I think the government is still watching and monitoring them? Abso-fucking-lutely. They're just waiting to see if Elle makes contact. Because even though Elle might be dead, even though they might think that and that there's a really good chance that she is actually dead, it's still the government. So they're probably still very sus about it. They're probably keeping a loosey-goosey eye on Joyce and Hopper and the rest of the kids for that just in case. So that all makes sense to me. That all works for me. The only thing that really bothers me about all of that, though, is not knowing what happened to Dr. K. Again, I guess we can assume she lived and was demoted or something, like secretly, because again, she was heading up a thing that shouldn't have been a thing in a place that shouldn't have been and all of that. But it would have been way more satisfying to see her character die. Kind of like last season when that one racist white kid from season 4 got torn in half when Hawkins split into quads. Like, that was so fucking satisfying. It went really, really fast. The scene didn't dwell on him being torn in half, but it was there, and I enjoyed it. I'm just bummed that we couldn't get something like that with Dr. K. So I guess that's kind of a loose thread that I don't really care for. Again, watching her die would have been so much more satisfying. All right, so a few other things that I liked about part 2 and the finale. So part 2, we get Nancy and Jonathan. I love their honesty with each other, even though Jonathan's a dick for giving away Nancy's sweater because he doesn't like pink. Dude, what if she gave away all your fucking clothes because she didn't like dirty? So her complaints were valid relationship complaints, while his were more insecure complaints. And I think that just goes to show, again, how incompatible they really are and how really the only thing holding them together was their shared trauma. And I like that they addressed their shared trauma. I like that they admitted that they will always be bonded to each other and that they'll always like love each other, but they aren't good for each other. And going their separate ways amicably. Let's see. Dustin and Steve. I love Dustin being honest about his grief, sort of, kind of, by saying he can't lose someone else again. He can't go through that again, the grief of losing Eddie. And he especially can't go through that again with Steve. So I loved this moment for these two. It did make me a little nervous for the finale because I'm like, they just had a really sweet little heart-to-heart, just like Dustin and Eddie had a sweet little heart-to-heart, and then Eddie died. So it made me a little nervous for these two. And then when they brought back the you die, I die, I was like, fuck, are they both going to die? Because I will just melt into a puddle of ugly cry and snot. They didn't, and you know what? That's fine. Saved us on some tissues. And Last thing about that real quick is Steve's little tuft of hair sticking out of his backwards cap. I loved it. I love it so much. He's still the king. He's still the Steve, the hair king Harrington. I also like that when Dustin found the notebook in like the secret room or whatever, this whole time, all these 28 years, they thought the upside down, everything they thought was wrong. And everything they thought was dark magic from Vecna was actually science magic. I really, really liked that. I love, like, we still get our fiction in our science fiction here, but I love that we really get the science. It wasn't dark magic creating or whatever, this exotic matter to power the whatever. And I know that exotic matter is apparently very theoretical science, but it's still sciencey-wiancy. It is like the epitome of science and fiction, right? Because it's a theory. It hasn't been proven yet. So there's a chance that it might not be actually a thing, but it's science. So there's that possibility. I really, really like that. That might be one of my favorite parts about part 2 and the finale. And just that there were a lot of theories floating around this last season and everyone just being like, oh, I like that theory. No, they were theories. And I like that they were just theories and not like, this is what's going to happen. It's like, this is what should happen theoretically. But again, dark magic versus science magic, and science magic being the answer for the exotic matter. I love it. Love it. Love it. Let's see. Jonathan and Steve, they kind of have their moment. I'm glad they're done with their macho bullshit. And they're both kind of like, well, I still hate you. I still hate you. Ha ha ha. Whatever. Budding bromance in the works. I see it. I see it. I see it. So I'm glad that they were able to make their peace and all of that. Luke is carrying Max through the hospital, trying to get downstairs to the laundry room and everything. Lucas, so yeah, he's carrying Max, he's holding the stereo, waiting for the fucking elevator doors to shut, and then just fucking drop kicking a demo dog right out of the elevator without dropping Max or the stereo. Bad ass. That by far the coolest fucking moment. Very, very nervous. I was like, oh God, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna throw the stereo? He can't throw the stereo. No, he just kicks the motherfucker in the face. Love that. Karen Wheeler doing the laundry. I love how badass she was this season. I also love that, like, after she saved everyone and everyone's running off to go finish saving Holly, Karen's like, I'm coming too. Also, how can you talk right now? Just curious. But but I love, she's all like, I'm coming too. I'm not staying here while my daughter's out there. You're fucking crazy. And then Mike being like, giving her that pep talk of like, no, Mom, it's fine. We just saved Will. Now we're going to go do the same thing for Holly. If you know anyone that can do it, it's going to be us. And you kicked ass. You saved us. Trust us to save Holly. Now go hobble your fucking healing ass back up to a hospital room because I ain't got time to walk you back up there. And I don't know, maybe check on Dad. He just left her in that hallway. She had to probably fucking take the stairs all the way back up to wherever. Fucking poor Karen Wheeler. She was still a badass, but in the end, still a goddamn mom having to do fucking everything herself. She gave those kids life. She saved their lives. And now she's still got to make it back up to her fucking hospital room on her own. I'm sorry. I do love that though. It cracks me the fuck up. And since Karen lives, so does her hairvolution. And her hairvolution will continue on into the 90s. I bet she rocks a killer Rachel haircut. And kind of sad we won't get to see that. Another thing that I really loved about this season was bringing in Mr. Clark again. You know, he's been there. He's been supportive all the seasons and everything. And I love that they bring him in. He helps them build their thing, their telemetry tracker. And then is just like cool with hacking the military and going into the upside down, all in the name of science. I loved it. I love Mr. Clark, and I was super glad that he came back this season. And I love that they got him into the Upside Down so he could finally see what the fuck was going on all these 36 years of these kids busting into his shit and Joyce busting into his shit, asking him science questions. Like, he just thought that they were on a curiosity journey and he was going to be the wind in their sails and everything, but nope. Let's see. That's pretty much gonna be it. I think when it comes, I say that and then go immediately into a fucking paragraph of a thought. Um, of when it comes to the finale and some people being unhappy with it for whatever reasons, I don't know what their reasons are, and they've got their reasons. That's fine. I think part of what may have been disappointing for some people is that since the show started with so many D&D elements, that the theories from those fans, like, they were fucking amazing. There were some that I really, really liked, some that maybe I didn't co-sign, but I was like, oh, that is a fun theory. But the fans just went wild with it. Not just the show fans, but obviously fans of Dungeons and Dragons. And since it seems like D&D can tell so many different stories and go in so many different directions just with the roll of a dice, I can understand how the finale may have felt underwhelming, basic, and mid, because you've got all these supernatural elements, and the ending really could have gone like 1 in 100 different ways. It wasn't some fantastical campaign or story or anything like that where we loop back to the kids being kids in the basement. Also, we can't fucking do that since they're all like 42 years old now. So I can understand how some people may have felt that the ending was underwhelming. I can understand that for sure. I did really kind of like the theory that it was all just a story, kind of like how Mike wraps it up at the end telling the story, but for like the whole series, that it was just one big campaign. This ending, again, it was an ending. It works for me. It's fine. Again, flaws, plot holes, whatever, but I still enjoyed it. And I still found it relatively satisfying. And it did make me happy. Dustin's speech at the end for graduating, obvious nods to Eddie. The older kids up on the rooftop drinking their beers, Steve in a suit, coaching Little League. Oh, and the fact that he wants to have 6 little nuggets. I mean, that's because he's been taking care of 6 kids for the last fucking 46 years. So I get it. I absolutely loved it. Steve's arc and character growth was still one of the best in any TV show. I really like Nancy's arc as well. And her just going full fucking Red Dawn Rambo on people. So yeah. I get it. And that sucks. I'm sorry if the finale didn't work for folks. Hopefully you listen to this. Hopefully there were some decent points made where you can be like, yeah, all right, I guess that's fine. To kind of help bring you a little closer to not hating the finale. But I am going to stop there. Again, I know I skipped over a lot. And again, that's because I want to save some of this for a full episode with a tolerable. Maybe they can help sway my mind on certain things and vice versa. But I'd love to really just get into this season, into the meat and potatoes and the vecna of this season with the people that I tolerate. With all of that said, I will just kind of end with this podcast started with Stranger Things season 3. And while this last season wasn't that great, I have sat through worse finales. I have sat through worse final seasons. And I can sometimes excuse a shitty final season if the finale works for me. Off the top of my head, Original Roseanne and The Office are 2 where the final seasons were kind of like, but I loved the finale. The finale worked for me. Original run of Dexter is one where the finale did not work for me. So I should have included that in the beginning. Either way, and it's kind of like, Lost had like a decent last season and a mid-series finale. in my opinion, like, I don't hate that one. I just felt like it was a safe out for them. I felt like the writers wrote themselves into a corner, didn't really know how to get out of it without bringing up 1,000 more questions. So they wrote the ending as they did, which was people's theories from season 1. Either way, it works. Kind of like this one. It works. Overall, I still love this show. Rewatching it, man, those first three seasons were fucking amazing. Season 3 might be my favorite. It really upped the whole horror factor with the mind flayer and the fleshy people, the flayed and whatnot. Super gross. Billy being a terror is just kind of a joy to watch, honestly. And I'm just going to be forever thankful for this show, for being there when I started this podcast. I mean, I'm sure there would have been something Laura and I would have obsessed about. Maybe CW shows. But I feel like nothing is going to compare to the first season. Like, that first season hits like nothing else. From the adorableness of the actors, the nostalgia, the action, the emotions, and everything, except for the lack of justice for Benny, because what in the actual fuck? No justice for Benny. Pisses me off every single fucking time. Anyway. So the show, from, again, the adorableness of the actors, the nostalgia, action, emotions, and everything, I still really love this show. It doesn't have a perfect ending. It doesn't have a perfect run. They can't all be Schitt's Creeks. And honestly, I think if this show had not run the 53 years that it took to make the whole series, it would have been, I think everything would have been better. And I truly think that's where Netflix fucked up, was all this time in between each seasons, and the actors growing up as they would, but then not having time jumps in the show to help better explain some of that. I think if this had been more of like a network TV show with normal running seasons, then I don't think the ending would have been as divisive. But the time these actors had away from these characters and then coming back for this final season just kind of made it feel like caricatures of themselves, like they forgot how to play these characters. And for some of the actors, I just didn't feel like their hearts were in it. It was just kind of more like, okay, let's just get this done so we can all move on with our lives kind of vibe that I was getting. And I think the writing could have been better in the finale overall. I think they could have made the changes to make sense. Whereas to some degree, some things felt a bit rushed here. I don't think the 1.5 hour long episodes helped anything either. I think they should have kept to their hour episodes and given us whatever their usual 8 or 9, whatever their fucking normal season runtimes were. Because I feel like when you have the 1.5 hours, if things aren't handled well, then certain parts can definitely seem like they're taking too long. Things are drawing out. Again, I love Jonathan and Nancy's honesty with each other, but by the time that scene was coming to an end, I'm like, how is that goo not up to their fucking armpits? And then, it stopped. And we don't have any answers to that either. And whatever, I don't actually care. Fucking is what it is. They didn't seem concerned with the melting walls and how they weren't melting. So then I'm not concerned by it. Yeah, the runtime I don't think really helped anything. I kind of makes the pacing feel a bit off. You're always going to have those moments of exposition where people are going to be having those conversations for either character growth, drive, or plot. But with these longer episodes, they just felt a bit more drawn out than they needed to be, I think. Or just unbalanced, maybe. So, all right, that's going to be it. I'm fucking shutting up now. So if this final season and finale changed your feelings on the overall series, let me know. What was it that did it for you? What was it where you were just like, nope, that's it. I'm done. There's no coming back. I'm just curious. We can have healthy conversations about why you're wrong. Just kidding. But let me know what your thoughts are on the final season, on the series finale, and if you would like to be tolerated to talk about the final season and the series finale. You can reach me on any of the socials: Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. You can also send an email to mystreamingbubble@gmail.com. So hit me up. Let me know. Otherwise, make sure you are following on your preferred socials. You are following on your favorite podcast player, and that you do all of those same things for the monthly podcast that I co-host with Erin from It's a Fandom Thing called Twin It to Win It. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, and you can listen on a podcast player near you. So I want to thank all my lovely bubblies for listening to me rant and ramble today. I appreciate that. And I will be back with some more new episodes. I got a couple of mini bubbles coming up, but I also have episodes tolerating tolerable. So it isn't just me talking at you for a little over an hour. It'll be me and other people talking at you for well over an hour. So make sure you are following and subscribed and all of that so you don't miss any of that good show talking. So thank you all so much for listening. Happy New Year and keep streaming. Goodbye. If you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to let me know by rating and reviewing on a podcast player near you, and by sharing your favorite episodes with your friends, family, and mail carrier. Then be sure to follow me on all your favorite socials like Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Just search My Streaming Bubble and I should pop on up there for ya. If you have suggestions on what I should stream in my bubble next, or you want to be tolerated, send an email to mystreamingbubble@gmail.com. Looking for merch? Stop by my Redbubble store where you can find and buy My Streaming Bubble stickers, hats, shirts, and more. You can also head over to buymeacoffee.com and, well, buy me a coffee. Need more podcast me in your life? Then be sure to check out my other podcast, Twin It to Win It. That's a monthly podcast that I co-host with my podcast brain twin, Erin from It's a Fandom Thing, where we test our twinningness by trying to guess if we both feel the same way about different horror movies. You can find and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And most importantly, you can listen, rate, review, and share from most podcast players. Thank you for your support and keep streaming. Goodbye.